Next up, we have Matthew Cordell. You may have seen Matt earlier in the week as one of ALA's featured speakers. Matt is going to give us a glimpse into the creative process behind his newest picture book, Hello Neighbor, The Kind and Caring World of Mr. Rogers, and that book has 4 stars. Over to you, Matt.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Holiday House. So I think I have a video, is that right, Terry?
You do, you
okay,
have a
all right,
video.
Good.
Yes.
Always come prepared for these things.
So
yeah, my new book is called Hello Neighbor, and it is about a personal hero and role model of mine, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. And so in the video, I'm going to show you my studio and a little bit about how I made the book, the artwork for the book. But the book itself it was really a labor of love for me because number one, it was my first work of nonfiction. So anything I've ever written up to this point has been fiction. A lot of it's been wordless too. So this was a bit of a departure for me. So the book, I'll just show you a few spreads in here. It starts out sort of with a bit of his childhood bio, a little bit about what he was like growing up and how he got into music and puppetry. And then as the book moves on, we start to see how he got into television. He first got into, his first children's television show was a program called The Children's Corner, which is where he began his career as a puppeteer, and he started, he created the characters that would go on to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, like King Friday, Daniel Tiger. And then we get into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood itself. So there's a lot of it's sort of like an illustrated tour through a lot of these very iconic moments that happen in each episode, where he changes from his jacket to his sweater. We are introduced to a lot of the different cast members, which one of the most inspiring things to me about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was the amount of diversity that Fred Rogers wrote into every episode. It was men and women, main characters, as well as people of different cultures and races. So really, I was really just inspired by the work he did, the respect and love he had for children. And it made me want to write a book about Mr. Rogers. And at the time, this was about 10 years ago, at the time, no one was really talking about Mr. Rogers. So I was like, I thought I was going to just kind of burst out of the wall with like this great book about someone that no one's talking about. And but then there was this resurgence of Mr. Rogers' interest and everything, and cut to about a decade later, and I was working with Holiday House to see if we could get a picture book biography done, and I was talking to the people at Fred Rogers Productions, which is still an active television production company, and they only wanted to release one authorized picture book biography. So it took a little bit of sweet talking, and but I was able to win them over with my good looks and charm. And then we were able to make the book. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really especially proud that I was able to work with Fred Rogers Productions and, get a lot of really in-depth insight to really make the book as accurate as it could be and as devoted to, a very beloved person throughout American history and pop culture. So that's about all I'm going to say. And now I have a video where I'm going to walk through just a few minutes and show you my bedroom studio. So feel free to fire that up when ready. Hello, I'm Matthew Cordell. Today I'm going to take you into my studio where I go every day when I make my books. So come on in. This is what I call my studio. It's really just one of the bedrooms in our house. I like to work from home, and in my studio it sort of doubles as a workspace and then a place where my kids hang out. As you saw, there's a bed in here. So I just I don't need a huge amount of room, truthfully, to do what I do. So some of these books belong to my kids. Some of these are mine. Some of their toys are in here. These are actually some of my Star Wars toys. I'm kind of a Star Wars nut. So I collect different Star Wars things. But my desk here, as you can see, this is the desk that I make all of my pictures for my books and do some writing here by hand. I have a computer desk, another place in the house, but I make all the artwork for my books here at this desk. And as you may know, a lot of illustrators these days, they make their drawings and their paintings on the computer. But I still like to use traditional art supplies, papers, pens, paint brushes, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how I make the pictures. So in my new book here, Hello Neighbor, if we were to look inside, you can see there's the drawings here are sort of scratchy line drawings, and then the color for the Hello Neighbor in all of my books is created using watercolor paint. So the types of pens that I use dip pens, so pens that don't have ink in them. For instance, this pen has no ink, so I have to dip it into this bottle of ink in order to draw with it. So when a drawing is finished, it's just line drawings, black line drawings. And when I'm ready to paint the pictures, then I use some of these brushes here. A lot of them are smaller brushes like these for detail. And I paint with these watercolor paints here. Some of these come dry, like pan watercolors like these. But I also use a lot of watercolor tubes like these come wet, and then I squeeze them out into palettes and then add water to dilute them. And you can see here are some of my early studies. When I first started making Hello Neighbor, I had to figure out, I knew Mr. Rogers, I wanted him to have a red sweater, so I had to do this sort of chemistry project here where I had to figure out what combination of different color reds would make the brightest and prettiest color red for his sweater. And I had to end up mixing two different base reds, permanent red light and cadmium red medium, in order to make this perfect sort of medium red, bright red. And these are some of the very first studies of drawings that I did for Mr. Rogers. I had to do a lot of drawing, a lot of sketching, figuring out sort of what his perfect posture was going to be like, the way that his expression was going to be, sort of in my simplified drawing style. I had to kind of strip him down in terms of not a lot of detail and figure out how best to recreate Mr. Rogers and the people of the television program in my style. So these are just a few different studies that I've done. Some of them were drawings I've done somewhat recently, but a lot of these were drawings I did just testing out how I could draw him in a very simple way. I had to figure out how to paint in different colors. As you may know, the earliest versions of the television program were in black and white, and these were some different color studies I was doing, and sometimes I just wiped my brush off and ended up drawing a picture of Mr. Rogers here in the margins of this paper. And this is actually a recent drawing I did of Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, and a good friend of his, Ella Jenkins, who is a beloved folk musician, children's musician. And Ella actually lives in my area of the country in the Chicago area. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I created Hello Neighbor here. And while I was making the book, I had this big, beautiful picture of Mr. Rogers looking down on me, or looking at me and guiding me, so to speak, with one of his famous quotes. It says, "You make each day a special day by just your being you." One of my favorite quotes from Mr. Rogers. There you have it. my very complicated, mostly messy studio. I actually cleaned it up quite a bit just so it wouldn't look like a total mess for this video.